Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present, and sometimes we revisit a creep. We talked about this guy in season 12, but since then, there's been more news that comes out about him, and especially there was a documentary.
Yes.
So since Sonia led that discussion last time, she's going to give us the highlights today of what we know now, and then it's going to be like going into the mystery machine or something. Then we're going to go back. And you're going to go back to the original episode. It's going to be so exciting. But first, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. We also want to let you know that we always end the show with someone who is not a creep. So there is a non-creep waiting at the very end of the show. I also want to let you know that we do use salty language in this program. So keep that in mind if you have the little ones around.
This isn't for them.
Right.
Also, shit, damn.
And also, you can send us your ideas for creeps and non-creeps. We're always looking for ideas for those. You can find us on Facebook. We do a basic Facebook page, but don't really check it. It's really our private Facebook group where we're very interactive. It's What a Creep podcast group. I have a few questions you need to answer. Then you can come on in and join the fun. We're on Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram at What a Creep Podcast. And we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And if you would like some stickers, send us your address and I will drop them in the mail for you.
She'll do it. She'll do it.
I will do it. I'm crazy that way.
She is.
Sonia, you want to tell them about the website?
Yeah, go to whatacreeppodcast.com and it's everything you want to know about the podcast, but we're afraid to ask. We have links to all of our past episodes, and in each of those little blog posts are show notes because we source everything we do. We're going to list out the sources here for this one as well. If you're looking for a deeper dive, fabulous place to start. There's also a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and journals and pillows and all kinds of
things.
All kinds of things. Do the things. Again, I've ordered a few of the shirts in my day. They are so soft. They are my sleep shirts. They are so comfy. So do that. There's also a link to our Patreon. You want to tell them about that, Margot?
Yes, Patreon. We are now in season 27. We have our first 9 seasons on our Patreon wall. So those of you that sign up and pay for it, you've got those 9 seasons you can go through, which is very exciting. But see, what's even more exciting is we put out 2 bonus episodes a month on Patreon. One is audio, and we also have one that is video.
Yep.
So you can, if you want to listen to us, you want to watch or listen to us, you have a choice. But you get to see our pusses, and we talk about news, and we talk about current events, and all kinds of things there.
It's always very
quick
fun.
hits. Yes, we always have a good time. And I want to say thank you to Alice, Melody, Daryl, and Lindsay. These are all people that signed up recently for the Patreon. We really appreciate it. Y'all make it great and helps us do what we do because we pay for our sources because that's how it should be.
Yep. We like to give people their money. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. So, Sonia, tell them a little bit about the episode.
Yeah. So back in season 12, we did an episode on Joe Francis, who is the founder of Girls Gone Wild, which was a thing that existed in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's basically they would send cameras into like spring break or bars, and they would film like young girls, sometimes underage girls, also known as children, and they would like flash their tops and all this stuff, and then they advertised it on like Comedy Central and everywhere, and it was just like super mainstream. We did a whole episode about this guy. Honestly, I was telling Margot before we started recording, I can't believe we waited till season 12. Like, I was like, this dude was on the list the whole time. So anyway, we did that episode, and I think we're going to play the sources again when we replay the episode, so I won't list them all over again. But the reason we're redoing this or re-releasing it is because there's a new documentary series on Peacock, and it's called Girls Gone Wild: The Untold Story, and it is all about him and how it's really gross, but also it has interviews with some of the girls, so some of the victims. It has like access to like production training videos. They interview some of the employees.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are some things in the documentary series that like we did not have back when we did this episode. And I took some notes, and then of course my phone turned off. So let me open it back up. So a few things it's 3 parts. Each one's like a little less than an hour. And here's the big thing. They actually do interview Joe Francis as well. He agrees to sit down. It's a former reporter from BuzzFeed that he sits down with. Later, he would refer to her as like, you know, a slut who isn't pretty enough to be on Girls Gone Wild, and that's why she was out to get him and all this. It's
for God's sake.
He is 100% like, I'm the victim. He thinks he's done nothing wrong. He is 100% waiting for like Trump to come back into office and hopes he's going to get something out of it, because he's living in Mexico right now, like still, because he doesn't want to like serve any time. What else? At one point compares himself to Jesus. He also compares himself to Mandela and says that he's like the women in The Handmaid's Tale. So enjoy that. There are some access to production training videos, which is pretty disturbing, where they talk about like basically how to manipulate women into saying yes. And it's not just flashing their tops and things like that. It is also, I've never watched these videos. I've only seen the commercials, but on these videos that you would buy, there also were like hardcore sex scenes in them at a certain point. And there is a lot of talk in the documentary series about how they manipulated these women into consenting to these scenes. A lot of it is like just your typical gaslighty type of stuff, but it's also like booze. Some of these they're girls, they're underage, they can't give consent anyway, so there's that sort of thing. They also talk about how Girls Gone Wild kind of paved the way for a lot of the misogyny that we were seeing in the early 2000s towards, and we talked about this in our bonus episode with like Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie and Lindsay Lohan and Britney Spears. Like, it was a part of that whole thing, and you also wanted to be a cool girl, right? Wink, wink, and be like, I'm showing my boobs and doing all this because it's empowering, like this kind of thing. And it's like, it can be,
sure,
but it also cannot be, you know what I mean? So I know it when I see it. It talks about that. It talks about how Girls Gone Wild also paved the way for people like the Kardashians. Like, he was connected to them. They were very much like Free Joe when he was in jail. Like, it's really gross stuff. So take care of yourself when you watch it. It will make your blood boil listening to him like talk about how persecuted he is. Let's see what else. Oh, there's also some interviews with some of the female employees who worked for Girls Gone Wild.
Oh, man.
And they're 100% like, I did all these things, and then boy, was I surprised when the leopard ate my face. So prepare yourself for that as well. Again, it's a good one. It's interesting. I think our podcast episode in that series are like perfect companion pieces. So definitely listen. You're listening right now. Yep. And then check it out because it's on Peacock. So if you have it, go check it out. What a creep. What a creep.
Well, do we have any trigger warnings we want to give before I
Yes.
Bring us to
So
the past.
there is domestic violence and sexual assault.
Okay.
So again, if those are very triggering for you, this is not for you. Like,
Right, this episode.
yeah, but it will. If we're all triggered by that stuff, just take care of yourself when you watch it.
Right. Okay, well, thank you, Sonia. We'll get into that episode right away. Here we are talking about Joe Francis and Girls Gone Wild. We're trying to do our best journalism here that we can. Every week, if you're new to the show, what we do is we take turns talking about a creep. This week, it's Sonia's turn. He got back onto my radar because I just saw this documentary on HBO Max about Woodstock 99. We're going to be talking about that shit show on our next Patreon bonus app. But this asshole this week, Sonia, who are we talking about? You are talking about, I mean.
We are going to be talking about Joe Francis. And this was all, I watched the same documentary. I watched Woodstock 99 and was reminded that Girls Gone Wild was a thing and how insanely popular it was. And I was like, what's up with Joe Francis? Check the news. Turns out dude was back in the news. And I was like, how have we not talked about Joe Francis? So let's talk about this fucking creep.
Yeah.
Sources for this episode: Hollywood Reporter, Jezebel, CBS News, Forbes, Ranker, Las Vegas Review Journal, Los Angeles Times, Syracuse, The Sun, his own website, Meet Joe Francis, and Wikipedia, always Wikipedia. There's some trigger warnings here for domestic violence and sexual assault. Joe Francis was the founder and creator of Girls Gone Wild. So if you've watched TV late at night back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I'm sure you saw commercials for Girls Gone Wild. And it made him a millionaire 10 times over. He has also been convicted of tax evasion, bribery, false imprisonment, and assault. And he has pleaded no contest to child abuse and prostitution. He is a fucking creep.
Wow.
And I can't believe we waited this long to talk about him. So let's start at the beginning. Joseph R. Francis was born April 1st, 1973 in Atlanta. He's an April Fool. Get it?
Stop it.
Oh, his parents are Raymond and Maria Francis, and he has 3 sisters. And he claims that they would always do bad shit and blame it on him. And to that, I say, dude can't even take responsibility for stupid shit he did as a kid. It's going to be a reoccurring theme, my friends. When he was 7 years old, the family moved to Newport Beach, California, where he attended a Catholic elementary school. And this is not surprising. We hear this a lot from our creeps. When he was in school, he got in a lot of trouble. And this is how he describes it. Like, school was too boring because I was so smart. And that's why I acted out. We hear this all the time with our creeps. I'm like, fuck off. You're just a prick. So he was so unruly that his parents shipped him off to boarding school. And at one point, he even went to a military academy.
Wow.
Yeah, but eventually he graduated from high school and he attended the University of Southern California's Business Administration program. He also took several courses in film and television, graduated in 95 with a bachelor's degree. After graduation, he moved to Hollywood. He got a $350 per week production assistant gig at something called Real TV. Do you remember
that?
Real TV? Okay, it was a syndicated TV show, and it would just kind of feature like really crazy news footage that you would never see like on your local mainstream news. Really crazy like tornado footage or, things like that.
Like dogs riding a bicycle or something like that?
Yeah, that could be on there too.
Like stunts?
Yes, exactly like that. It was on for a while. I have to say, I don't think I watched it, but I knew what it was. So while he was working there, all the employees were passing around this VHS tape, and it was stuff that Real TV wouldn't air, and the videos were fucked up. It was like suicides, video of a woman getting hit by a train, like a woman who got her legs bitten off by a shark.
Like Faces of Death?
Yes, it's like totally nasty shit. He used his credit card to buy the footage, and he created a video called Banned from Television.
I think I remember. I'm sure my brother John bought this fucking thing. Absolutely.
And this was a video series that you could like rent, I believe. And it was always this like really fucked up footage of like people getting hurt, and yeah, it's nasty, nasty stuff. When he was gathering all that footage for banned from television, he started asking his like providers, like, do you have something that's not so violent? You know, maybe something a little sexy. And what he got was this footage of girls at Mardi Gras, and
really?
They were lifting up their shirts. And here's a quote from him. "This wasn't porn. It was something better. It was real girls. It was spontaneous, and the girls were hot. I took the tape home, and for a few weeks, it was my only source of entertainment." What a creep.
Ugh.
"I just couldn't get over it. I became convinced that other guys would be just as turned on by it as I was. So I licensed the footage, asked the source for more, cut together a tape that contained nothing but cute, real college girls flashing their breasts. And that became Girls Gone Wild." Have you ever watched any of these, Margot?
No, but I remember the commercials. I mean, I went to college. I was one of the girls. I could see boobs whenever I want. It's not. If that's your thing, fine. But I
totally.
But in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, but do these girls understand what they're signing away when they do this? This is
Yes.
Show your
more
boobs.
on that.
You want to show your titties? Go for it. But I mean, understand what you're getting into, and I don't think they did.
Yes, and I want to make it very clear. Like, I am in no way am I shaming these girls for what they did. Joe Francis did try to frame this as something like it's super feminist and empowering what these girls are doing. And I was like, whatever, you fucking creep. These women totally have the right to do that. But as you're going to hear, like, I don't think a lot of them realized what they were getting into when they did this. So I just want to set the stage for Girls Gone Wild. So the infomercials were all over late night TV. So like I worked during, nights. I would come home. It's like midnight, 1 a.m. I watch a little Comedy Central or whatever. And Girls Gone Wild videos were on like every commercial break. And it was like, you want to see girls go wild? And it's like, the girls are lifting up their shirts and it's all blurred or whatever. And it has the Girls Gone Wild logo or something. This was like 98, 99. And it was just like riding this like gratuitous wave of like these kinds of videos. Like MTV was doing pretty raunchy like spring break coverage, summer house things. Real World started as something where they put these kind of interesting people together in a house, and then it was turning into like, let's just get them drunk and see if they fuck.
Yeah. See if they get naked. See if they'll shower together.
Exactly. And then there was this rise of reality TV in which like normal people were getting famous. So I suspect the appeal of Girls Gone Wild for some of these girls was they wanted their fame, but also a lot of these women, they didn't know what they were signing up for. This should probably not surprise anyone here, but Francis was accused of filming a lot of underage girls for those videos multiple times. And some of these women didn't even realize they were being filmed. So we're going to start. There's a lot of cases here. In 2000, a 14-year-old girl
oh my God,
flashed a cameraman, and her topless image was featured on the VHS cover of the Girls Gone Wild video. She filed a lawsuit, and you would think that this would be pretty cut and dry, using the photo of a naked minor to sell softcore porn. You think that'd be illegal, but Georgia didn't think the girl should be able to sue as a private citizen. They didn't think it was violating the state's child exploitation laws, and the judge sided with Girls Gone Wild. Isn't that
That's
this is going to come up
shit.
over and over. Like it's going to come up over and over that these judges and these juries, there's a she asked for it kind of mentality. And it didn't matter that she was a minor at the time, is what they said.
I'm disgusted.
It's disgusting. It keeps going. In 2001, a Florida State University student, she's not underage, but she sued Girls Gone Wild after her friends saw her topless in commercials for one of the videos. She didn't even know that she was in it. And her friends saw the commercials and told her. The footage was taken of her at Mardi Gras. And then a photo from the video was taken and used in billboards
Oh my God.
in Italy for the series. The woman's lawyer argued that her privacy rights were violated because I think they were.
Yeah.
But Frances' lawyers argued that Mardi Gras is a newsworthy event and she forfeited her right to privacy. And I will say that ultimately they settled and the company stopped distributing that video. She kind of won. Yes. In 2002, a 17-year-old girl sued Girls Gone Wild for violating her privacy. She flashed a cameraman, and they used the footage in a video. Again, the judge found that the video hadn't violated her privacy, and he rejected any arguments that she was, A, too young, which she was, 17, and she also argued she was intoxicated, and so she was too intoxicated to consent to filming, and the judge threw out the case.
Fuck him.
I know.
If it's a him.
Bullshit. It was.
Yeah.
Most of these were. This one was also in 2002. Two Alabama teenagers sued the company, along with any vendor who was selling or renting the video. I was like, good for them. They were 17 at the time, and they claimed that a Girls Gone Wild film crew tried to induce, entice, lure, pressure, and coerce them into disrobing and exposing their breasts, and they ultimately lost their case too. By the way, most of these girls underage, under 18. These girls were under 18, and their case was still tossed. It's bullshit. That makes me so angry. In 2003, two Louisiana girls, one 17, one 18, they sued Frances, saying they were offered drugs during Mardi Gras to flash their boobs. And they were just for pictures for him, he said, not for the video. And then, of course, he used them in a video. And that case was also thrown out. There was an investigation in later 2003, and it was revealed that Girls Gone Wild crews had filmed 35 minors in Panama City alone.
Oh, for God's sakes.
It's so gross.
Ugh.
And like nothing happened to these people for years, by the way. They just kept doing it. In 2007, two women said they were were like, come on. They bought like a tour bus, like a Girls Gone Wild tour bus.
Oh, I remember that. Those commercials.
So they lured these two girls on the bus and promised to give them swag. Basically, there was all this like, Girls Gone Wild shirts and shorts and whatever. Once aboard, they said that they were given booze, even though that they were under 21. They said that the cameramen then coerced the women into exposing themselves and engaged in sexual activities, and repeatedly said they would not be using the footage in a video, and then they did.
I just realized it's called Girls Gone Wild. I mean, it's they're putting it out there.
Yeah, they're they're telling you right in the title.
Yeah,
but still, so many of these women, 17 years old or younger. Ugh. It's gross. So the women claimed that it was used without their consent. They were drunk and underage, but once again, thrown out. Also in 2007, 4 girls, this is crazy, between the ages of 13 and 17 filed the lawsuit.
Oh my God.
Francis and his crew filmed them flashing their breasts and engaging in other sexual activities in Panama City, Florida. The video was released with these girls, by the way, all underage. And when the video came out, people at school found out, and they were ridiculed, and made fun of, bullied, and forced to leave their school.
What a fucking asshole.
Isn't that awful? And once again, no one did anything. They're underage. It's awful. Eventually, some charges stuck, and Francis pled guilty to exploiting minors admitted that he didn't keep track of the ages of the women and girls he captured in his videos. And he was also convicted in Florida of coercing a minor into prostitution. He paid her $50 to appear on camera.
Oh, God.
But most of the time, these cases went in his favor. The jury would say that the girls knew what they were doing.
Right. It's her fault. You shouldn't have been drunk. You should. Yeah.
Yep. There's a quote here in one of the probably the Los Angeles Times story. It says, through her actions, she gave implied consent.
No such thing.
Right. They shouldn't have been drunk. Victim blaming.
Right.
And another case of, hey, why don't women come forward about stuff?
Exactly.
It's
just go to the
awful.
police. Just, it's assholes.
I know. By the way, he's in and out of court all the time. We're talking like from 2000 to 2007. Dude's in and out of court all the time. He's being fined all the time. He finally gets some jail time. He has to pay all these fines. It doesn't stop anyone from doing business with him. In early 2007, he commissioned a complete line of like Girls Gone Wild apparel. It was like casual wear, sleepwear.
Oh, of course. Yes, please.
Yeah. Swimwear. There was a runway fashion show,
Oh, for God's sakes.
all this stuff. And it was carried by retailers like Urban Outfitters, Fred Segal, Bloomingdale's.
Oh, of course they did.
Yeah, of course they did.
Oh, for God. I'm going to get sick.
It's so gross.
I want to punch somebody right now. He has such a punchable face, too.
He has such a punchable face.
Oh, my God. What a dick.
He's such a dick. I was fine tuning the script last night and I was going through it and I was like, he's such a fucking garbage person. Speaking of garbage people, disgraced former president and walking shit stain Donald Trump invited Joe Francis to be on The Apprentice in 2008. Of course he did. Francis also can count the Kardashian families as a family as a longtime friends and supporters. He's allegedly one of the people that advised Kim Kardashian to quote unquote leak her infamous sex tape that I think we all know wasn't leaked.
Right.
I'm sure they really just put it out there very intentionally. He parties with them all the time. If you Google him, you'll see like a million pictures of him like partying with the Kardashians and things like that. Well into like recent years. There's a picture of him in like 2013 at the like Kim Kardashian and Kanye West like engagement party. He went to the wedding.
Are you kidding me?
No, he's their friend.
Oh my God.
And while all these lawsuits are going on and he's launching his clothing line and all this shit, he buys this huge compound. I mean, estate in Mexico. It's huge. It's got a main house, 2 guest houses, 3 pools, beautiful gardens, and it's called Casa Ermara. I want to pronounce it right. I spelled it out phonetically. Ermara. And if you pay attention to the Kardashians, which I don't, but if you've watched their show or read about them, you've probably seen or heard about this place. They party there all the time. And it's been in several magazines, TV shows, and all these celebrities used to borrow it from him. So like Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, I was
Vince
just going to
Vaughn.
say that's the first thing that popped in my head for some reason.
Yeah.
Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, Courtney Cox, Sheryl Crow, Quincy Jones. They've all stayed there. And yeah,
Is it like an Airbnb? Like, does he lend it? Like, do they rent it? Or
I don't know if they rent it or if he loans it out to people because he's
fucking rich.
Yeah, it's I want to the term that keeps popping in my head is star fucker. He's kind of a star fucker.
You think?
You think? So I think it probably had more to do with that.
His ego.
And I was just like, why should filming underage girls get in the way of a friendship and a plush vacation spot, huh?
Yeah.
These people don't care. It sucks. So when he wasn't being accused and sued over, coercing girls and young women into flashing their breasts or performing sexual acts for his camera crews, Joe Francis was also being credibly accused of sexual assault. In 2006, Los Angeles Times reporter Claire Hoffman wrote this really infamous profile of him, and she describes the scene in which he kind of plucks this 18-year-old girl off the dance floor in a nightclub. He takes her back to the Girls Gone Wild tour bus. He gets her drunk. He films an explicit scene for Girls Gone Wild and then tells her that, and then later, like, this girl tells the reporter that she didn't realize she was being filmed.
Oh, yeah.
And she said that when the camera stopped rolling, Francis took her somewhere else and he raped her. And she said she told the reporter that she would never have undressed for the cameras if she hadn't been completely drunk, and that she tried to fight off Francis and she was unsuccessful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's awful.
I know. Also in that story, the reporter said that at one point he got mad at her. He pinned her to a car and he twisted her arm so hard that she started crying. He's such a piece of shit.
Ugh.
I hate this guy. Really, really hate him. In January 2011, he brought a group of 3 women to his home. Actually, let me backtrack. So these women went to the supper club in Hollywood to celebrate. Like, one of them graduated from college and they were really excited. So they all went out to dinner. And near the end of the evening, the women met Francis in the restaurant and they talked to him a little bit and then he left. And then as the restaurant was closing, he walked up to them and grabbed one of the women by the hand and took her into his limo. So then the other 2 women followed them, like got in the limo too, believing that he was just going to give them a ride to their car. Mm-hmm. And then during the ride, Francis' bodyguard produced a sheriff's badge. He was impersonating a law officer and wouldn't let the women get out of the car.
What the
and
fuck?
Then I know. And then he took the women to his home. It's a gated home. And he tried to separate one of the women from the others. And the women fought him off.
Good for them.
Like, good. Seriously. And during the fight, he allegedly grabbed one of the women by the throat and the hair and pushed and slammed her head into the floor 4 times.
Oh, my God.
I know. The women left the house and they were like, getting out. And then they were told, we'll call a taxi for you if you don't call the police. I'm like, that'll work.
Yeah.
So these dum-dums, they call a taxi for these girls. And while the taxi's driving back to Hollywood, they call 911 because they're not stupid. And they met the LAPD at the location of their parked car. And he was convicted on 5 charges of, I'm going to look it up, misdemeanor counts of false imprisonment, assault, and dissuading a witness. I think he threatened them. And he had to serve 270 days in county jail.
That's it?
I know, it doesn't seem like enough. That's not even a year. 36 months probation, and he had to complete an anger management class.
And the Kardashians hang out with him?
Yeah, they still hang out with him.
Fuck.
It's awful. After the verdict came in, he did an interview with the Hollywood Reporter. He called the jurors mentally R-word. We don't use the R-word. And suggested that they should all be killed. Of course, he apologized for his remarks and claimed that they had been manipulated by the media. They had not. The person recorded everything. He actually said these things. Girls Gone Wild made a shit ton of money for years. But then when internet porn kind of took off, and that people didn't really want to buy videos like that anymore. So sales started to dip. And then in 2007, the Department of Justice filed charges against Francis, alleging that he and his companies claimed more than $20 million in false deductions on corporate income tax returns. It turned out he also had these like offshore bank accounts, all these other things that he was doing to hide income. Mm-hmm. And this one's great. Also in 2007, he spent a weekend in Vegas playing blackjack at the Wynn Casino. And he lost $2 million. He lost $2 million in a weekend. Steve Wynn, who's also a prick, granted him an IOU, which he then tried to get out of paying by filing for bankruptcy.
What an asshole.
He's such an asshole. And this was all, he files for bankruptcy. It's meant to like block Steve Wynn from like getting his money. And it dragged through court forever, by the way. It just kept going. 2 years later, Francis had still not surrendered like his luxury cars to pay off his debt. Instead of just handing over his cars like a responsible human being, Francis took his cars and moved to Mexico. And they issued a warrant for his arrest, but bankruptcy is a civil... Sorry, they issued a warrant to pick him up. Bankruptcy is a civil law matter, so they didn't have to extradite him.
That's like with Bikram yoga.
That's right.
He had all those bills, yeah, and he wasn't paying them off. He moved to Mexico.
Ugh.
Dickheads.
Come on, Mexico.
Give them back to us.
You're better than that. Send these people back. So Steve Wynn, by the way, like I said, also a prick, sued for the $2 million. And during the trial, Francis spoke to a reporter at TMZ, and he said that Wynn threatened to kill me. He said he would hit me in the back of the head with a shovel and bury me in a hole in the desert. And then Wynn's like, fuck off, and filed another lawsuit, a defamation lawsuit for $7.5 million, and he won.
Oh my God. Really?
So it's like, dude, you probably should have just paid the $2 million and shut the fuck up. What a dummy.
What an asshole.
He's such an they're both assholes, but seriously, shut the fuck up. This guy's such a prick. Nothing's his fault, right?
Right.
Even him gambling and losing all the money is somehow not his fault. He's garbage. In 2012, Abby Wilson won the Girls Gone Wild Search for the Hottest Girl in America contest.
2012?
Yeah.
Damn it, I was so close.
You were so close. You should have entered. She is very beautiful. I did look up her pictures. And she became his girlfriend shortly after that. I don't know if that was part of the prize. Like, you also get to have sex with Joe Francis. Whee! That's awful. The following year, like, by the way, they're together for like a year and they're already on VH1's Couples Therapy. Did you watch Couples Therapy?
No, I never saw Couples Therapy, but it's just like the people that wind up there. It's like they're never couples you would root for.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, if you've only been together like a year and you're literally on a reality show called Couples Therapy.
How broke is he though to do that?
I'm like, just get the fuck out, just run away. So when they were on this show, a lot of people noticed that everyone thought she was actually very sweet, but she would be very quiet whenever Joe Francis was around. And fellow castmates noticed something and they said something to her and they tried to like kind of build her up and give her some support. And she confronted him and said that like, you're constantly correcting me and belittling me in front of people. And he was just like, well, he said, I'm an intellectual snob and I'm just more educated than most people.
Oh, fuck you.
I know.
That's like my intellectual response to that.
I know. He's such an asshole. I want to hit him in the dick with a bag of nickels. He's such a dick.
Hell of an image.
I know. You're welcome, everybody. Here's your bag of nickels.
Well, I mean, she stays with him because she's in an emotionally abusive relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel really bad for her. Like,
she feels like she doesn't deserve better or.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she stayed with him. And in October 2014, she gave birth to 2 girls. I'm like, oh,
twins.
Those girls. And the girls, they're adorable. Everybody drink. I looked it up, in one of the articles, there's pictures. They're very lovely girls. In August 2020, this is the news that just came out, but this all happened last year. It happened a year ago, but the news just broke. So last year in August, in their home in Mexico, Francis was arrested for domestic violence. According to court papers, Francis had tested positive for COVID, and he asked his wife to inject him with vitamins.
Oh, my God.
I'm surprised he didn't take Trump's advice and go for bleach, but sure, whatever. She was like, I'm not doing that. And then when she was like, I don't want to do that, he screamed at her. He grabbed her by the neck, spit in her face.
What?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Threw her on the ground and stepped on her head. It's awful.
Oh my God. You could do permanent damage doing that.
Yes. So he was in jail for a while. Charges were filed. Eventually charges were dropped on the condition that he attend therapy and the police down there said that he did do it. And at some point, Wilson and Frances got back together and tried couple therapy again, not on VH1, I assume. And during the therapy session, he told Abby in front of the therapist she should do him, the world, and their daughters a favor and go home and kill herself.
Oh, God, no. Oh, my God.
He's a fucking monster.
Oh, my God.
He's a monster.
Yeah. Oh, my God. This poor woman.
I know. And she has said that he would scream at the daughters and he would insult them and reject them and make fun of them and say that they were stupid. And so she was like, that's enough of that. So she left him and filed for divorce. I know. I was like, good job. They were never officially married, but they were common law married in Mexico. She filed for divorce. They have laid out custody and child support. And he was ordered to sell that huge estate within 2 years and pay her $5 million out of the profits to help provide child support. In June, just this past June, she filed for a restraining order against him and filed for sole custody of their daughters.
I was just going to ask if she needs to do that.
Smart.
Yeah.
Very smart. And she is not in Mexico anymore. She moved back to the States and she's like with her family and stuff. And just a week after she filed for emergency custody, that estate caught fire.
What?
How unusual.
How convenient.
Yeah, don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. It's not suspicious at all. So this case is actually ongoing. So we're probably going to have some follow-ups on our bonus apps. But that is our creep, Joe Francis.
Oh, my God. He's even worse than I remember.
Right? This is another one where I was like, there's probably like a couple of court cases. And he's just a real prick. And I was going to get into like, he dated like Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton at their like peak of Lindsay Lohanist and Paris Hiltonist. And he was treated them like garbage. And I wanted to get into all of that, but we try to set a limit.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm going to save it all for our bonus apps because he is just a fucking piece of work. He sucks.
I used to remember those commercials and like, I would just be like, do they really do they have all these women sign off on this? Like, how do you get so many women to do that? And part of it is just the culture just judges them like, well, you're showing your boobs. That's what you get. You know, you have no recourse here. And of course there's alcohol involved and drugs involved. And when you watch Woodstock, it's so upsetting. We'll talk about this more in the bonus set, but there's scenes where girls are being surrounded by guys who are saying, show us your tits, show us your tits.
Yep.
And they're kind of like, how the fuck do I get out of here? And just cameras on them. Cameras everywhere.
Yeah, because filming. And all the women in this documentary, they didn't sign up for this.
No.
You know, it's not, and I'm not like shitting all over the documentary because I think it's actually a really interesting documentary, but the culture of that time we talked about a little bit when we did an episode of Dorking Out about Gone Girl.
Yeah.
And she talked about cool girls. The late 90s, early 2000s, there was this stuff about being a cool girl where it's just like, I don't give a fuck. And you like show your boobs and you do this and you don't complain when you're manhandled and all that because you're a cool girl.
Right.
And it's just so shitty. And it was really fucked up to watch that documentary and see that stuff and remember what it was like back then and the mentality. And Girls Gone Wild profited off that.
Oh, and MTV profited off it for years with their spring break shows, which were just total misogyny on parade.
Yes.
Just drunk people making poor decisions, which, you know, that's what you do when you're young. But
for sure.
I mean, I'm no angel, but I mean, but to then take that and monetize it, and then they have advertisers and they're just making money off these kids and they get more and more riled up because there's cameras on them.
Yep.
And they behave ways that probably wouldn't normally behave. And it's all just a big disgusting pile. Ugh.
It is. Did you watch, there was an MTV movie called The Real Cancun. Did you ever see that?
No. What's that?
It's totally like drunken real world.
Oh no.
Like, let's get all these people and put them in a house together and see if they fuck and get drunk and make bad decisions. And they do.
Same thing with those MTV Real World Road Rules, competitions. And I used to watch them, but after a while, it used to be like they had to do stuff. And then after I was like, oh, just watch them in a house, get drunk and fall and scream at each other.
Yeah, watch the first season of Real World or the San Francisco season of Real World, and then watch the Vegas Real World
with Trishelle.
Oh, it's totally different.
It was just completely different after that. It's just Well, good job, Sonia.
Thank you.
Do you want to hear
take
about
a shower now?
I know. I'm gonna put on my hazmat suit. Or a Silkwood shower. Let me go jump into that, and then we'll come right back. And you and I are going to talk about. Well, I'm going to talk to you about a non-creep who's amazing and is helping women. This is a suggestion from the Facebook group, and you've been really helpful there because sometimes I don't know who to pick. I was like, well, he's from Atlanta originally. Do I pick somebody from Atlanta or do I blah, blah, blah? And then someone mentioned, what about Elizabeth Smart? And I was like, God damn, yes. June 5th, 2002, she was 14 years old. She was a Mormon girl from near Salt Lake City, Utah, and she was kidnapped from her home by two people, Brian David Mitchell and a woman, Wanda Barzy. They kidnapped her and made her an extra wife of theirs.
So awful.
And they took her from Salt Lake City, just outside Salt Lake City, to outside San Diego. And she was repeatedly raped by him. They threatened her life. They said they would, if she told anybody what was going on, that they would threaten her family. They scared the shit out of this girl. She was young. She was 14.
So awful. She's just a baby.
And they didn't know where she was. And there was times where they took her out and she was wearing what was like a burqa. And so you could see with her eyes, like you could see her eyes, but she was out in public and sometimes at parties, and people said, well, why didn't she say anything? It's like, because this man, they terrorized her.
Yeah, she was so messed up. You don't know what to do.
Yeah. She was threatened with a knife. She was threatened with all kinds of things. And she was eventually found and she was brought home. And she was brought home in March of 2003. So she was about 14 months. She was, yeah. And she does the thing where you go on all the talk shows, and she's now 15, almost 16 years old. She went on the Nancy Grace program.
Oh,
and Nancy Grace, well, you talk about Gone Girl. They have like a version of Nancy Grace in Gone Girl. And Nancy Grace had her on just like, oh my God, were you terrified? Why did you, when they were looking for you, could you hear them calling your name? Why didn't you scream out? Were you just so scared? And Elizabeth Smart, 15, 16-year-old girl, was a trauma victim, was just like, I'm only here to talk about, I want to help this bill get passed. It was a sex trafficking bill.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm not talking about anything else. That's all I'm talking about. And Nancy had to kind of back off, but she looks like an asshole. I'll post it into the Facebook group.
It's not hard for Nancy Grace to look like an asshole.
No, she was a garbage person. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of her natural state.
Yes.
Actually.
She was this blonde lady that was on CNN and then some other channels, but she would just talk. She was an advocate for crime victims, but she just took it way many steps too far and always assumed people were guilty and always assumed the worst. And anyway, Elizabeth eventually writes her own story. She writes a couple of books, and she talks about, in the first book, she talked about her abduction, but she didn't really go into what happened to her. And it was just more about how she came home and she went back to school. She went to BYU, Brigham Young University. She married a nice guy. He's a Scottish American, I believe. He was, and he's a Mormon as well, and they have a daughter, that kind of thing. Like, you can get through a thing. And then her next book and the next topic that she wanted to cover was this whole thing, and I don't know where it is everywhere in the world. We're based in America, but there's this, I'm going to call it a weird subculture of purity culture, where women's bodies are completely over analyzed, and people have this thing that about not look, if you don't want to have sex until you're married, that's on you. Make that your decision. That's your body. You make that decision. But it's in some cultures, I was raised Catholic. It's pretty similar to Mormon faith. Like if you are a person that has sex outside of marriage, you are garbage. You're done.
Yes.
You're impure. No one will want you. It's the worst thing. And it's okay for your dad to say things to you like, oh, you know, like to threaten guys that date you. There's this whole culture of around prom season on Instagram.
Yes.
Of girls on dates and their dad's holding a gun. Like,
So-
it's so fucked up and stupid.
I hate it.
I fucking hate it too. And so she, in her next book, she started talking about like, I was sexually abused, and then over and over, repeatedly for 14 months. I go back to school. I'm in high school now. I'm like ever sophomore, junior in high school, and teachers would talk in sex ed about abstaining. That's the only kind of, just don't have sex. The reason
That'll fix it.
That'll fix you. Don't have sex because, as one of her teachers said, it's like a piece of chewing gum. If someone's always chewed you, they're not going to want you.
Ew.
And she's like, I was raped. So I'm now used gum. I'm
That's
not
gross.
It's so fucked up. It's misogyny
Yes.
just built into a culture for years and years and years. And it takes a lot of guts, I say, for a Christian girl, especially a Mormon girl, to come out and say, fuck off. She doesn't say that because she's a nicer person than me.
She's nice.
She's a nicer person than me. But she basically saying, we are doing our girls wrong because so many women are, and men, but so many people, so many people are victims of sexual abuse, and you didn't bring it on yourself. It's just something that happens to you, and you're not a bad person because something happened to you. You're the victim of a bad person, and
Yes.
and you shouldn't be shunned. And we have to like start teaching people about having agency over themselves and their bodies, and learning how to fight back and to say something and to speak up for themselves. And she has a nonprofit. It's the Elizabeth Smart Foundation, and you could go on there. There's all kinds of resources, and they have tabs that just say like, "We believe you." If you wherever you are in the country, it gives you local resources. It's elizabethsmartfoundation.org. Then, about a year and a half ago, Elizabeth Smart was on a flight by herself and was bumped up to first class. Not only bumped up to first class, but there was nobody sitting next to her. She was like, that's my dream. Like, it's
Oh my gosh.
It's like, that is living the dream to me. She gets on the plane. She falls asleep. She wakes up, and there's a guy sitting next to her, and he has his hand on her thigh, and he's rubbing her thigh.
What the fuck?
He sees that she wakes up and just stares at her, and then just puts his hand away and just stays in the chair. And she was scared to reach up to get the flight attendant.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to walk around him because he'd grab at her body.
Right.
That's like the seats are not that.
Who are these fucking assholes?
I don't know. And her first thought was they land the plane, and she just ran off the plane, and she started crying, and she calls her husband, and she just didn't know what to do. She was so embarrassed. And she's like, I'm Elizabeth Smart. I'm supposed to know better. And even I froze. And she just was telling her story. And I'm so proud of her for doing that, because it's not many people would own up to that. But she said,
No.
I did freeze. And so now she has on her foundation website, you can sign up for courses. It's self-defense training for women and girls. If you want to help her out, you can sponsor a scholarship. So that's and the pricing, it's like $300 for 8 or 4 week courses, but it does depend on your location. So it's much cheaper in some places, but they do have scholarships, and you can sponsor somebody to take the course if you're looking for somewhere to put your dollars. But that's what she's doing now. And that's our Not Creep this week, Elizabeth Smart.
This was such a good pick. Good job, Facebook group, and great job, Margot.
Thank you.
Such a good one.
it was like Polly Kloss, like he went to her home and got her out.
It's
and
awful.
then took off with her. I mean, it's just, but she's okay. And she got married and she has kids and she's, running this nonprofit and she's so brave and she just, there's so many, like she put up with Nancy Grace for Christ's sakes. I'm just like, oh, I should say her abductors did go to prison, but one of them, Wanda Barzee, the woman, was released.
Why?
And for 15 years for her role in the kidnapping. He was sent to prison to life without the possibility of parole in 2011. She was let out early. It's because of her competence to stand trial and whether or not she's mentally competent enough, whatever. Lives near a school. There's all kinds of fucked up stuff about her. I didn't want to focus on them so much. I'm sorry if I sound like, I don't want, because we give a lot of attention to creep. So I kind of just didn't want to have it be about them so much. That's why I focus more on Elizabeth. Yeah. But that's our not creep this week. Elizabeth Smart.
Such a good choice.
Thank you. Please follow us on all of the things on social media, What a Creep podcast group and Facebook. We love it when you use a GIF, of Annie Potts and Ghostbusters saying we got one. When you have a suggestion for a creep or a non-creep, like I said, we're always looking for suggestions for non-creep. Thank you so much for doing that in the Facebook group. Our email is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. You could support our Patreon page if you're interested. If you get us on Apple Podcasts, you want to leave a few stars, awesome. By the way, if you like the sound of our voices, we co-host a show called Dorking Out. We've also been missing there for a couple of weeks. We're going to be back into the saddle, though.
We are. I can't wait to get back into it. So our next new episode is going to be The Wedding Singer.
Yay!
I am so happy to talk about this. I haven't seen it in a while. I just wanted something light and fun to ease us back in. So we're going to watch The Wedding Singer. And then we've already taken a request for the episode after that. We are going to do Girls Just Want to Have Fun from 1985, which I think might be on HBO Max. So we can even watch it for free.
Yay!
But I'm really excited to get back into it. And thank you everyone for your patience while I've been
enjoying Hawaii.
Enjoying Hawaii, but also I was like displaced, for a while because they were doing all this work on the house. So it's been like a really crazy summer, not a one crazy summer like the John Cusack movie, but everything's been up in the air. So I appreciate everyone's patience.
And Sonia, where can they find you on the internets?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and sometimes TikTok, where I'm there to ruin it for the kids. Where can they find you, Margot?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fitchick, mostly for Twitter and Instagram, and my blog is brooklynfitchick.com. And we will be back soon with a new episode. In the meantime, wash your hands, wear your masks indoors if you can, please. This Delta variant is scary as fuck.
So scary. Get your vaccine if you haven't. Do it.
And don't be a creep.
Creep!
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.